Traveling to the US as a student can be an intimidating process, especially if it's your first time. So, in this episode, we will take a look at some of the things you should know when traveling to the US as an international student. Stick around. Hi, my name is Timon from GoStudyWIU, an agency that helps international students easily transition to the Western Illinois University right here in the United States. The information I'm about to share is from my personal experience and from the Department of Homeland Security's website. I would post a link to the website in the description of this video. Here are some of the key things you should know when traveling to the United States as an international student. After you've booked your ticket, pay very close attention to the itinerary. The itinerary tells you where the flights are going to be leaving from, what time the flight leaves, all the connecting flight information or details. It also gives you information about the airport codes, the gates that you're going to be arriving at, which gate you'll be departing from in order to catch your next flight if you're connecting. So you have to pay very close attention to it. What you would want to do, since you may not know some of the places, is do a Google search. Look to see what some of the abbreviations mean. Some of the airport codes do not necessarily align with what the names are, so look to see what the airport codes are for that particular airport that you're going to be arriving at. Now, an airport code is basically, in most instances, a 3-letter code that you would find that relates to the name of the airport. So be very cognizant of what airport you have to arrive in and what time you have to leave that particular airport, if you have a connecting flight, of course. An important piece of information that you would see on the flight itinerary are the times that the flight leaves, as I mentioned earlier. But you have to pay attention to the fact that you might be traveling to a different time zone. So if you do not have a phone or a watch that is connected to the internet in that particular country, which you may not have, especially if you're traveling there for the first time, then your phone might be showing a time that is not related to the airport that you're at. So you have to be very conscious of what the time is at the airport where you arrived. That can be disastrous if you don't know what time you arrived or what time it is where you are, and you possibly can miss your connecting flight. So pay attention to the time and be mindful of the fact that you might be traveling into a different time zone. The next major thing you have to ensure that you have is your I-20 document. An I-20 document is a document issued by the university that you'll be attending. So ensure that you have that document. Then you need, obviously, your passport. And the passport that you should have also should contain your student visa in it, that F1 visa that we spoke about in earlier episodes. Even while you have your passport, you have to ensure that your passport does not expire, let's say in the next 2 days. So your passport has to have at least 6 months of valid time before it expires. So ensure that your passport is up to date with your visa. Another important thing you want to know is who is your contact in the US. When you arrive in the US, how are you going to get around? How are you even going to find the university? So you have to know the name of the person and possibly have a phone number or an email address for them. That information would come in handy later on when we speak about what you would expect when you actually arrive in the US. Something you might want to think of, and it's very important, is at least carry some cash, not too much because there's limitation as to how much cash you can carry. And you may want to have a card that you can use to buy stuff. Now, I say this because sometimes you have a long layover and you may need food or you may need water, you may need something that makes you more comfortable. So be sure to have some form of cash with you or card that you can use while you're traveling. Something that seems relatively simple but is very important is knowing the baggage policy of the airline that you're flying with. Some airlines allow you to take a personal item, which can be like a backpack or a handbag or so. Others may allow you to have a check bag for free, while others you have to pay for each check bag. So be very aware of what the baggage policies are for that particular airline that you're flying with. When you get to that airport, be sure that you fill out that little tag that you can attach to your carry-on or your luggage that you're going to have as a personal item with you. That is because you may, for some reason, forget that item on the plane, and you may need to get that. They may need to get that item to you after you've already gone. So there the only way they can find you is if you have that tag filled out with your personal information so that they can contact you when you arrive. So you can also maybe use the number of the person that's your contact if you don't have any way of being contacted since you're just arriving, you don't have a phone number just yet. So be aware of that and make sure you fill out that tag. In that personal item or carry-on package, please ensure that you have some personal items that you can use for maybe a couple of days, just in case your main checked bags get lost. It can happen, so be prepared just in case that happens. Have some stuff that you can live off of, so that you're not found in a desperate situation if you do not get your checked luggage. Also, regarding checked bags and so, you can put something pretty, something bright, something colorful on it so that it's easily identifiable when you reach to the airport. Because the airports are large and there's sometimes a lot of people traveling, you want to be able to easily identify your bag on the carousel and just pick it up and go. Because you might be in a rush, you never know, to catch your connecting flight. So be aware of that. Also, know what things you're not allowed to carry or to pack in your checked bags. Some people might be coming from countries where they have those things that they really want to travel with that makes them feel comfortable and at home. But it might be a problem when you get to the airport because they have to go through extra scanning, and that can delay your time if you have a connecting flight. So know what things you can and cannot carry. And I should have mentioned also with regard to carry-ons and personal items, there is a limitation as to the size of the items you can take onto a plane. So be aware of that so that you don't get stuck in an immigration line in a security line trying to pass with a bottle of water or drink or so. So be aware of that also. After you've flown for hours to get to the US, you would arrive at the port of entry. Now, usually that first entry that you get to in the United States would be where you would meet the CBP officers, the Customs and Border Patrol officers. So that first interaction would be generally to assure that you should be here by looking at your visa, ensuring that you have your I-20 documents, and they may even do an interview with you, a brief interview in most cases, just to find out, is this person legitimate? Should they be here? They're going to ask you questions like where you're going, who are you going to meet, who's picking you up, if you have a contact information for this person. So that's why I said earlier, make sure that you have information regarding the people that's going to be picking you up and your contact information for that, the contact information for these people. Now, be sure to not put your I-20 and other documents like passports and stuff in your checked bags. Ensure that you always have those in your hands with you at all times. Do not put those in your checked bags. Never. So when you get there, you can easily present that to the CBP officers and they would do whatever they need to do and send you along your way. Now, while you're speaking to these officers, try not to say too much. Do not volunteer information that you do not have to give. Now, I'm not saying that you should lie. Definitely do not lie. Don't do it. But don't try getting too conversational because these people are able to detect certain things. So if for some reason they're just suspicious of you, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't get in, but you might end up being delayed for questioning or something, and that might just cause you to miss your flights. So don't volunteer too much information. Just say what you need to answer, and move along quickly. So after you've arrived, you've passed the CBP officers, you may have a connecting flight. So it is very, very important that you know exactly where that flight leaves from. There would be a terminal and a gate number that you would need to pay attention to, which you can find on your itinerary. But in a lot of instances, these numbers change as the day goes by. So be aware of that. So what you may want to do is ensure that you're keeping tabs on any changes that happens. So look at the screens, look for your flight, and try to get to that flight, to that departure gate as quickly as possible. Now, even if you've arrived at the departure gate, it doesn't mean that you can just sit there and just think that the flight is going to leave from that gate, because it can change while you're sitting there waiting on the flight. So be very aware of that. always look for changes, possible changes in your departure terminal or the gate that you're leaving from. Now, in a lot of US airports, it's pretty big. So what you want to do is you want to use any form of transportation that you can to get to your gate as quickly as possible. So if it means using the buses that they have or the trains that they have, some trains run within the airport, try to get on those as quickly as possible so that you can get to your gate, settle in, maybe grab a bite, always check for updates as I mentioned, and ensure that you get there in time for your next flight. So even though traveling can be an intimidating process, and you may have done all the planning, there are some things that can be unexpected, especially when you're coming from a different country. So be prepared for the unexpected. Be flexible. Do not try to get angry if something changes, but rather remain composed, keep your head on, and know what you're doing so that you can finally arrive at your destination and relax. So those are some of the tips I have for you when it comes to traveling as an international student into the United States. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, like the video, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, share my video with a friend.